This video is about why flexibility is way better than overindulgence. Keep watching.
Yeah. I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Hey there guys, how's it going? My name is Sumit Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today I'm talking about how flexibility is way better than overindulgence when it comes down to being in the flow state. So understand the flow state happens in 4 cycles, right? The struggle phase, the release phase, the flow phase, and the rest phase. If you bypass the cycle and you try and stay in flow for too long, you can feel very drained. You can feel very empty in a sense because you're actually releasing your dopamine deficit. And it actually depends, it depends on what you are using in a sense. So if you are overindulging or you have an addiction to a certain substance or behavior, then you are unnaturally creating flow state, which it's not really unnatural in that sense. However, you are putting something external or something else has power over you in a sense, right? Where you start to understand that, okay, there is this overindulgence happening. And the way I see it is, when you're addicted to something, you're almost narrowing in on your pleasure, right? So let's say that you're addicted to shopping. Your mind is going and it's zooming into only shopping, whereas you can experience pleasure from lots of different things in life. However, it's giving the shopping way more value than all of the other possible addictions on the planet or behaviors on the planet, right? Or dopamine releasing things on the planet. Because at the end of the day, you just want pleasure. It gives you a sense of pleasure to shop, right? When you think of being more mindful or enlightenment, if we even want to use that term, we think of an expansion of pleasure, right? So an expansion of pleasure would be like, okay, I'm getting pleasure from the little things in life, like the small, subtle ripples of life, and you are finding them not just in the milestones or the zooming in on a particular product or a particular thing or a substance or an issue right? It's not a zooming in, it's a zooming out, is what I'm saying. So when you're more flexible, you understand that there are times where you have to cut yourself out or rest or recover, and this is where we use this term recovery phase. It is like recovery. And we can learn a lot from these people, right? From people who've gone through this process. Like, I've noticed for me particularly that I love to go into these fantastical realms and kind of break myself out of reality. I think that that's just a very good feeling. And I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree watching, is you feel a sense of pleasure, right? So let's say that I watch one YouTube video and I walk away from it. Now, there is this pain that comes after it, right? So pleasure and pain are from the same part of the brain. Oh, I'm spitting bars now again. I do this a lot, guys. There's a balance, right? There's a seesaw effect, a balance scale. So you have pleasure, you're gonna experience pain after. You got pain, you have pleasure after. And it's like this pendulum swing of life that you notice. It's kind of like laws of physics in a sense, if you wanna see it that way. So when you're watching that first video, you want to confront or tackle that pain of walking away by watching another video. Does that make sense? So you're like, man, I want to cover up the pain, and so I'm just going to do more and more and more and more of it. It's because I don't want to experience that pain of not watching. So a lot of people are unconscious of this, right? They are not aware. They don't put their attention onto this thing. So where attention goes, energy flows, right? If your attention is on one substance, one behavior, one thing, it's consciously gonna keep going there. So impulsive people actually don't have that space in their minds where there's this gap between stimulus and response, right? Just completely go with it. And it's kind of interesting because you could also say that, hey, impulsivity is great in certain instances, right? You don't want to be inhibited and hesitant all the time, right? So there is this fine line with this, and that's why I feel that a lot of people, they have to walk this fine line and learn about it themselves. They have to understand themselves better, right? Like for certain individuals, you tell them their name and then they have a startled response, right? They go, immediately they turn around. Whereas someone else, they might take their time with it and then they slowly turn around. Yeah? So notice that this might be related to anxiety as well. However, just start to understand that there might be some impulsivity, some overindulgence within you. I know that I have a few of those characteristics myself, but I know when I can zoom myself out and look at this all expansive state, and I can go into my own mind and consciousness and just feel through what is really happening, then I really start to take the power back. And it's not easy. And I'm saying it like it's easy. It's easier said than done, right? It's very easier said than done. So you want to really practice like being able to pay attention to what happens after moments of activity or things that you're addicted to, or notice the point afterwards from the decisions that you're taking or the behaviors that you're doing. There is going to feel this moment of pain that comes after it. But if you push yourself consciously to do different pain activities, like you go to the gym, you push yourself, you condition yourself or think yourself into a thinking pattern that broccoli actually tastes great, maybe it's going to start to change things around. And that's what we're all really looking for, is a way to understand how to really gain dominion over our own minds and not have it be this mechanism that's consciously trying to skew us off balance. And the thing is, it's not trying to skew us off balance, it's trying to keep us in balance. You see, it always wants us to remain in homeostasis. So it's going to try to do everything that it can to have us remain at that level of balance. Now, people see this term balance and they think it's a bad word. I don't want balance, man. I just want to go extreme. I just want to go hard. I want to go all the way. However, the brain and our neurochemistry actually goes against that idea of going all the way and going extreme. So you have to work with your brain. You actually have to tap into the power of your mind and your brain and your heart and everything else, your gut and your sexual organs, all of it. You have to be in alignment so that you can actually move forward and get things rolling again in that sense. So this is the way that I understand it. Avoid this narrowing in or this zooming into one thing, and instead, to maintain further flow, you want to take time off of that activity, because it is transient hypofrontality, right? It is a temporary state. If we can find a nice action rest potential, action rest, action rest, action rest, then now we're creating that wave, right? But if you're just action, 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 guess what? The drop is going to be a lot more low. The higher highs get to the lower lows. That's just how the brain works. It thinks that, we're going to have to give that amount of pain back because you've had that amount of pleasure. And once you know this fact, you're just like, okay, now I'm going to actively actually pursue things that are going to give me this feeling of pain, but not suffering of just like sitting back and being passive, but actually the suffering of taking action, the suffering of doing something and choosing your suffering. And this is what the Stoics believe, right? So really understanding that once you choose the suffering and you do difficult things, even when you don't feel like it, in a sense, it is actually building this mild threshold of pleasure that's going to slowly permeate in the background. You're going to start feeling good, right? Why do we have occupational therapy? Because if you're just sitting back and not building your skill set in terms of finding your passion, it's not like fitting a key into a lock, finding your passion, right? It's more like you want to actually know what needs to get done. And then through that, what needs to get done, you understand that, okay, I'm passionate about solving something. I'm passionate about going forward in something, and right, putting my work out there and like doing things with my life, right? And I think that this is very important. It's important to find your own balance. You know what I mean? Like in this age where everything is just instantaneous and we have all this context switching all the time. We're scrolling through social media and we're not used to that. Like our brains aren't used to that, so it starts to adapt to that kind of behavior, and it gets very confused and it scrambles the data in the mind, right? So really start to practice time where you're just simply by yourself and you're doing reflective, meditative actions, and you are primarily working towards a sense of mindfulness and a connection with all the pleasure that this life has to offer. Have an incredible day. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. Let's get it. Boom.